What's up? My name's Glue Boy, and welcome to a new thing on this channel. I'm going to talk about more than just factions, kinda, but I'll get to that. This is actually going to be the first of a little series called Character Focus. I'm going to talk about a guy rather than like a whole army and all that. And we got a really fun one today. We get to talk about this absolute gremlin of a man, the primogenitor, the clone lord, guy by the name of Fabius Bile.
Anyway, that's how I lost my medical license.
Fabius Bile got his start with the Emperor's Children Space Marine faction. And one thing to mention with how Space Marine recruitment went, because this is important, is when sourcing your new Astartes for your Legion, there are two really ways you can do it back in the Great Crusade. It's much different now. You either source them from the Primarch's homeworld, or you source it from Terra itself. Fabius Bile, he was part of the Terran league of the Emperor's Children, which something pretty bad that hit the Emperor's Children was this gene seed mutation that basically gave everyone space cancer, really bad. Just basically would make tumors pop up all over the place, willy-nilly in your body, and kind of just kill you slowly. Real rough. Fabius here was the apothecary, which imagine just your army medic, and really smart guy. And so this new disease that popped up, named the blight, fell right on his lap. He had to figure out a way to deal with it. And the Emperor's Children gene seed stock was pretty shit. It was real, real bad, real low, not a lot of good things going on with it. And as he worked and worked, he couldn't find a way to really solve the problem. So he kind of just got stuck until he found at least one new discovery. He found out a way to at least test for it, and then later on he found out a way to just offset the symptoms and the real effects of it. As Bile kind of got the blight, and however, being the chief apothecary, he found himself in this really beautiful position to falsify medical records. And so he did. Eventually though, they refound Fulgrim after he got shot off into space, brought him back in where they were able to get new actual genetics sourcing of their Primarch, so they could fix the problem, replenish their troops with, not space cancer-ridden gene stock. And a bad decision they had to make was to kill all of the infected Space Marines who had the blight, which, because the Emperor's Children actual culture they had, they were completely fine with this. They were like, all right, test me and kill me if that's what matters to perfect our Legion. All except for Fabius, who kind of just swapped his test with a totally not sick guy, because his job was to make sure all of this was going down. He deemed himself too important to die. And to be completely honest, he was right. Dude's stupid smart. But he had to hide his affliction from everything and found out a way to actually offset his own symptoms and extend his lifespan by cloning gene seed and stealing some gene seed from other dead Space Marines to kind of just keep himself going. All that was well and good till the whole Horus Heresy happened. And Emperor's Children went right alongside Horus, pretty down for it. Kind of because Fulgrim found a funny little cursed sword that had a demon in it, started whispering sweet nothings into his ear, and immediately had the Legion kind of devote themselves to Slaanesh. Rough time, except for really Fabius. He decided, nah, I'm not into that. However, now that the Imperium's not over his shoulder, he can really get invested in unethical science. He was pretty down for that part. Which I think a pretty important thing to mention, one of my favorite parts of Fabius is the only atheist in Warhammer. This man does not believe chaos is real. And the thing is, he's kind of right in a weird way, as to Fabius, chaos and the gods of chaos and all of that are essentially just galactic phenomena that happen that humans are ascribing personalities towards. And the demons are things, they're real things, but he doesn't believe they're sentient. They are just figments of an imagination that people put meaning onto. And he's kind of right, because the warp is the manifestation of emotions and thoughts. This translates really fun in a few parts. For example, him telling a Slanesh greater demon, a keeper of secrets, a thing you don't want to fuck with, to its face, you are not real. Some really fun quotes there of it telling Fabius, I have a name, then him going all like, names are for the sentient, leave my ship figment of my imagination, stuff like that. He's real fun, and it's kind of a fun part of his little personality. He will debate, that demons don't exist to a demon's face. Horus Heresy is going on, and Bile finds his brand new hobby, which is genetic alterations. He starts just inviting other Space Marines to come in. Yeah, he'll fiddle with you, make you a bit cooler, make you a bit stronger, add some extra things he's not going to tell you about so he can test them out for his own personal theories, stuff like that. And a lot of people, the Chaos side, are like, hell yeah, I'll take more mutations. That sounds like a great time. Until eventually, as the Horus Heresy really started ramping up, and the Emperor's Children really started just taking a nosedive in going full degeneracy, Fabius decided, I'm done with this. I'm just going to leave. So he just left, like the Emperor's Children, which Fulgrim's not very happy about that. Kind of put a bounty on Bile's head over this. But, what are you going to do? Bile went off into eventually the Eye of Terror as he got, chased in there during the Great Scouring and found this dead Eldar world. Bile went and founded this apothecary school kind of sorts called the Consortium, which he invited a bunch of other apothecaries over so they could bond over their shared hatred of the Hippocratic Oath. And that would be where he delivers his secrets, teaches these new apothecaries the ways of flesh and all that, and, continues with his great work, which is kind of twofold. First, he wants to create a new form of man, which he's getting damn close. He has these things called gene hounds that are honestly pretty far into advanced human, just in general. However, with the key thing of they all listen to Fabius Bile and do everything he says. He wants to make a brand new humanity and really uplift humanity in the end. However, he's at the top, as he is mad scientist and horribly evil. And then second part, Fabius Bile wants to clone the Emperor of Mankind. Have all of the power of the Emperor under his control. So then he can shape, the universe like he wants. Which, something to bring up, one of his titles I mentioned earlier is the Clone Lord. Fabius is really good at cloning, stupid good at it. He's cloned multiple Primarchs. Fulgrim, he made a perfect copy of Fulgrim, like 1-to-1 of the original guy, which he then gave to everyone's favorite Necron kleptomaniac Trajan the Infinite, who he's good buddies with. They trade a lot of stuff all the time. He made a lot of copies of Ferrus Manus, Fulgrim's best buddy, who Fulgrim totally believes, hey, I can sway this guy to chaos if I just figure out the right argument. And he's failed every single time. And then, lastly, as a nice little, gesture to Abaddon the Despoiler, he cloned Horus. And this didn't go well in two fronts. First, the clone of Horus was not a good clone because his soul got, erased, and it wasn't as, on par with Horus. Second, Abaddon was really upset about this, to Bile's surprise. He kind of presented look, I've made Horus. And Abaddon's he failed. I'm the new leader. And so he used Horus's own weapon, the Talon of Horus, a giant, literal talon melee weapon with a gun in its, hand. And he, shoved it through Horus's chest, saying, you're no father of mine, killed him. And then proceeded to blow up all of Bile's work, which was, centuries of data. And he was real upset about this, and Abaddon now kind of wants Bile's head as well. Which, that's another thing I'll touch on. Everybody despises Bile, because he's capable of horrific shit. He will go out, and all these planets or war bands will be hey Bile, you're really good at genetic alteration and kind of cloning and giving us more Space Marines. Can you help us fight? And you're yeah, I'll do that. And then he'll do his own research that kind of helps them until eventually he puts them in a position where they're worse off before they ask Bile for help. And then he just leaves with one of his contingency plans of yeah, I made you a bunch of new soldiers and I put bombs in their chest. I'm going to detonate them and run. Because he's I got my research. I don't care if you live or die. But then the other problem is that he's too smart and useful to everybody. He is like one of the few reasons why Chaos Space Marines are as prevalent of a threat as they are. Because he's one of the only ways they can get new people. So everyone equally wants him dead and wants to recruit him. And they kind of like flip-flop. I mean, this will make sense if you really know about Warhammer stuff, or at least know about this faction. Fabius Bile is one of the only people that the Dark Eldar homunculi respect. And the Drukhari are awful people. They're horrific. And then the homunculi are worse. They're big fans of, also the ways of flesh, genetic alteration, turn you into a person couch that feels pain they can sit on, just kind of like stab a bunch, because they're awful people. And they invited Fabius to learn their ways because they respected his work. And he kind of respected theirs. It takes quite the horrible fucker to get them to like anyone. The last thing I'm going to talk about is Fabius Bile's war gear. Because it is actually like really cool, like the stuff he has. First he has the Chirurgeon, which gives him also the nickname of the Spider, as it is essentially this backpack that's strapped to his back in like a spinal cord that acts as like multiple limbs for Bile, doing some fun stuff like a little injector arm or like a scalpel arm, able to do some extra surgeries, which he also just does surgery on himself all the time, because still dying of the blight, and he just found a way to operate on himself and pop his brain into a new body whenever he's gonna die. But also a fun thing, kind of interesting with his term, the Spider, is that the arms are kind of Doc Ock-esque, where they're like kind of sentient. At least he theorizes that they might be alive, as he has this little theory that they're going off and doing their own experiments when he's like asleep, or these moments where they do something a little strange. He thinks like they might be doing their own experiments. But also they're really dangerous weapons, as they can defend him and catch blades that are coming at him and all that good stuff. Next we have his gun of choice, the Zyklos Needler, which is like the medic's gun from TF2, like that needle gun, where he makes all sorts of horrific concoctions. And, sometimes you need to test these fun stuff in the heat of battle, because just because you're fighting doesn't mean you can't progress science. So he'll make some horrible thing and shoot a person with it and see what happens. A lot of the time, it's instant death, horrific pain, or a fun example from one of the books, he took the blank gene, the pariah gene, which basically is this gene that gives you like an aura that shuts off any warp fuckery. And he made a fun little concoction of it and shot a demon in the face with it, killing it instantly in a horrific manner. Real fun scene. Next we got one of the reasons Fabius has his name, Fabius Bile, his pimp cane, known as the Rod of Torment. This sick-ass cane is a demonic artifact he took off of a demon that he killed and then also debated it wasn't real to its face, that causes horrific, agonizing pain by a single touch, which he then reforged into the cane you see today. With a single just whap of his cane, you'll go through so much just agonizing pain, you'll beg for death right then and there. Which, because he's a horrific fuck, he won't kill you, and just kind of study what happens, and then probably take you away for some more testing. But with all of that out of the way, we can talk about the rules.
I have combined the DNA of the world's most evil animals to make the most evil creature of them all.
It turns out it's man.
Just because this is a brand new series doesn't mean I'm not going to talk about rules. Fabius Bile has his own little sub-faction for the Chaos Space Marine. Honestly, I couldn't have made a faction video for Fabius because his faction is just the people he's genetically altered. So all of their lore is his. So just going right into it. The Creations of Bile is honestly a really, really good army for the Chaos Space Marines. They're one of the better performing armies in that codex, just in general. And for good reason, a lot of their rules are really strong. First things first, when picking this faction, your army bonus is phenomenal. +1 strength, +1 movement, and all your shit gets fight on death. your army is going to be a really killy melee list. And that's always super fun. There's some really cool units that the Chaos Space Marines have, like, say, run a fuck ton of Raptors. Jetpack Chaos Marines coming in with extra strength and extra just kill options. And then also, they got a lot of really fun stratagems. Like the ones appearing behind me. A lot of these are like really, really fun. Though I will say, one of these in particular is not as good. It's more situational. Kill the Warlord, a permanent army debuff for the rest of the game. Handy if the person doesn't know what they're doing, or like you fully outplay them or something. It's situational, handy, fun to have, but not as good as the other three. And then also your secondary is my favorite type of secondary. You get points towards playing the game. If you play Warhammer, you just win more. I love these, and this secondary is phenomenal, so they're doing really solid right now. I will say, one actual con for running Creations of Bile is that Fabius Bile is not very good. His stat line is fine, it's interesting. He's got a lot of fun rules for casual stuff. I 100% run him in casual play. It's super cool. This augmentation table is super cool. However, if you're playing competitive, bring Abaddon, which I think is extra funny based on their history, but Abaddon leads the Creations of Bile better than Bile does. And so just run him, bring another character or something. Just don't bring Bile, honestly. And finally, before we close this out, if you want to read about Fabius Bile and really enjoy just his whole shenanigans, there's a really good series, Fabius Bile series by Josh Reynolds. Good old Primogenitor, Clone Lord, and Man Flayer, being the 3 entries of a series. Honestly, I'm working through Primogenitor right now. I was listening to it even earlier today. Solid book, really good. One kind of complaint I have is the first chapter of the first book is kind of rough. I can only deal with, Oleander, you've returned to the Consortium. What if I killed you right now? So many times. It happens 5 times. The book gets really good once you see Fabius. So if you also have that hang up with the first book, I did it too. Just once you get to Fabius Bile, it shoots up in quality. As well, he's part of one of the DLCs for Inquisitor Martyr, the game. He is the final boss of a part of that game. And I mean, the game is fine. It's just solid Diablo clone, just with a setting I actually give a shit about. So, it's a fine game. But that about wraps it up. That's all the Fabius Bile and his horrible gremlin-esque glory. If you like this, like the video, subscribe, send it around, follow me on Twitter, do all typical YouTube things. See ya.